President Bill Clinton is political royalty and a household name around the world. His rise to the top was aided by a team of strategists, chief among them political strategist James Carville, known as the Ragin' Cajun. Carville is credited with leading Clinton's first presidential campaign to victory, a feat that defined U.S. politics in the 1990s. I recently had the chance to catch up with James Carville. Here's the first part of our conversation. During Bill Clinton's 1992 presidential run, James Carville wrote 3 rules on a whiteboard in the campaign war room. They were meant to remind campaign workers of Clinton's core messages. 1, change versus more of the same. 2, the economy, stupid. 3, don't forget health care. Carville's blunt reminder about the importance of the economy has since become immortalized in political lore. When we spoke, I started by asking him how he learned to run a political campaign.
I think it kind of, all of a sudden, it clicks in your mind, and it's almost like a kind of epiphany. You gotta, try to think like people are thinking, or to think what they're thinking, and you have to get into, how that is. And also, it's the easiest thing in the world to say, but it's difficult to execute. Political communication is the only endeavor in life that you multiply by subtracting. The less you say, the more you heard. And that's not a person's basic instinct, if you will. The person's basic instinct is to say a lot, but then you don't get hurt. You don't get hurt in politics if you do that.
I mean, one of the hard things must be you can have a strategy and you can have a vision and a clear plan, but you're dealing with individuals who often have big personalities, some bigger than others in your case. How hard is it to get them to do what you want?
You know, Mike Tyson, the boxer, observed everybody got a plan till they get hit in the mouth. Okay? The one thing we know about politics, and particularly American presidential politics, is you're going to get hit in the mouth. And the plan is, you can figure that out. But what do you do when you got to go to plan B and C and D after you get hit in the mouth? And that's to be able to adapt on the run is a real sort of skill in politics, I think.
And also to stay true to some core beliefs, right? Those 3 things you hung on the
war room.
You
have to, again, delay. If you can't say if you say too much, then you kind of lose it. And when you get hit in the mouth, you got to go back to the things that you do well. And it's easy. It's easy to know what to do. That's the easiest part of life. Getting people to do it is the really hard part of life. It's easy to say my investment strategy is buy low, sell high. Okay, try it.
Now, the discourse in America has changed a lot, and you've written and spoken a lot about that, and some of the reasons for it. Are you pessimistic about the kind of current state of the electorate and their grasp of issues?
You know, in the intermediate, maybe so. In the reality of U.S. politics is that for kind of complicated reasons, it is very difficult for the Republicans to ever lose the House of Representatives, but it is very difficult for the Democrats to lose the presidency. And we might just be faced with this kind of government for the immediate future, maybe through 2020, 2022. I mean, something always changes, but I guess on the upside is, compared to kind of everybody else, we're doing pretty good in the United States right now.
These days, James Carville works as a political consultant, but he's spread out to other fields as well, teaching, writing, and speaking at events. He's also a well-known political commentator on U.S. television and no stranger to fiery debate. Here he is in late 1998 after the House of Representatives voted to impeach President Clinton.
We're going to take this country back, and we're going to take this Constitution back, and these people are going to pay for what they did. This was a cowardly and dastardly thing that they did, and there's going to be retribution.
In our conversation, Carville and I talked about what's happening to the media in the U.S. and how that affects politics.
And you've talked about that feedback loop we get into because of the media.
The media actually is kind of odd in the United States, and it's kind of lost a lot of its sort of power compared to 1992. It's become much more diffused. Who knows what? I've never seen an institution that is constantly accused of having so much concentrated power that's really lost a lot of its power if you stop and you think about it. And what is the media today? The number of people that watch the evening news is down significantly. The number of, as Sheriff Penham would say, lamestream media people that cover politics is down significantly. So, in also, as you've had this, everybody has their own website, everybody has their own TV channel, everybody has, you don't have to, if you're a liberal, if you're the liberal in the United States, you never have to read a conservative thing for the rest of your life. Particularly easy if you're a conservative. But you watch your own documentary films. Anything you want. There are people that are willing to tell you that you were right all along, and make a lot of money doing it too.
So if you're trying to manage a message in this environment, what's different about when media did have concentrated power?
Well, it used to be that if you're trying to manage it, that you tried to. The trick was to get people who kind of swayed back and forth to sort of agree with you, what we'd call swing voters or non-committed voters. The truth of the matter is that politics is more about getting your own people excited as much as convincing other people. And I think that trend was with us in 2014, and I think it'll be with us in 2016. I hope not, but maybe it'll change a little bit. We'll see.
The tone is certainly nasty.
It's always been nasty. That this is not the
nastier?
Election 1800. I mean, they're like back in, politics in the U.S., and I'm sure anywhere else, has always had a strong negative undercurrent to it.
It's full speed onto the White House.
James Carville advised Hillary Clinton's 2008 primary campaign to be the Democratic candidate for presidency. Clinton lost that race, though, to a man with a powerful message.
We hope, we believe, yes, we can.
Now, near the end of Obama's term in office, even some of his staunch supporters say he failed to deliver on his campaign promises. When I spoke to James Carville, I asked him if he thought Obama had failed to live up to expectations.
Look, I could make a case that he's been enormously successful. Healthcare costs are declining. The number of people with health insurance is up. The deficit is shrinking at a rate greater than any period since World War II. The U.S. economy is growing faster than any Western economy in the world right now. Crime is probably at an all-time low. Teen pregnancy rates at an all-time low. The auto industry is not, on its knees, come up to its knees. It's on its feet, kind of running almost, if you will. We weathered the worst financial crisis we've had since World War II. So I think he can point to some significant achievements. And the criticism that is what the overall promise of Barack Obama was, is that he could change Washington. Now that has been, no one has ever done that before, but that is, I think, what I would say has been the promise he didn't fulfill. I would argue in a lot of instances, he succeeded way beyond what anybody would have possibly thought.
What did you think when he made that promise? Yes, we can.
I just thought it was absurd. I'd been around long enough to know that you're not going to change that place. It eats you up. It's no getting right. But having said that, he certainly has had a presidency of consequence. And in many instances, it's been, who in the United States would have said 4 years ago that we'd have a shrinking deficit, plunging energy prices, creating, on cue to create, more jobs than both Bush presidents put together by far. So, Jim and Chrysler would be, making money hand over foot. I don't know, not many. Maybe not me even.
Coming up, could Hillary Clinton make it back to the White House in 2016? That and more in the second part of my interview with political strategist James Carville is next. Political strategist James Carville has advised campaigns around the world, from Israel to Afghanistan. Carville is, though, most famous for his work with Bill Clinton. And in the second part of our conversation, we talked about another Clinton with presidential aspirations.
It's full speed on to the White House.
After her 2008 primary loss to Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton is expected to take another run at the Oval Office. With 4 years as Secretary of State under her belt and a strong base of supporters, Clinton is widely seen as the Democratic frontrunner. James Carville is among those supporting Hillary Clinton's likely campaign in 2016. When we spoke, I asked him if he thought there will be another Clinton in the White House.
I do, but I think it's going to be very difficult, very hard. But in the end, I think she'll prevail. But it's not a straight road at all, at all.
What's the campaign advice you give to her?
That you need to assure people that the next 4 are going to be different than the last 8. And I think that the great unfinished work of the United States is we have a declining middle class. In our country, is what we're seeing, the difference between increases in productivity and increases in wages are just gut-wrenchingly bad. And I think she can say, look, President Obama has done many good things, but the real work of our country is how do we have a prosperous nation that sort of includes everybody. Now, I think that's what she's got to be. And I'm determined, and it's not going to be easy, but one thing you know about Hillary Clinton is that she's determined, that she's able, and she'll cut through it, and she'll stay focused. And I think that's what she needs to say.
Do you think making a promise to solve that problem is as big and hard a promise as fixing Washington?
Very difficult, yes. And I think that she's got to say, I'm going to work on it. It's not going to be solved in a year, but through any variety of mechanisms that we have at our disposal, we have to figure a way to do this. And we've not been able to do it. The current recovery has not. But look, Lloyd Blankfein, the chairman of Goldman Sachs, said, we know how to create wealth in the United States, we just don't know how to distribute it. This is not something that's going unknown in this country, and people feel it across the country. They said, prosperity, growth, I don't feel that yet. Now it's starting to permeate a little bit. If we can keep the recovery going a little bit, it may permeate a little bit more, but by and large, people don't feel the overall prosperity that the nation has.
This really has become an issue that has become polarizing and partisan, right? It's seen as the 1% are the Mitt Romney Republicans, and the middle class are the Democrats.
People don't always vote that you would think would be the way that they should. American politics has become kind of tribal, and you identify with, if you're a conservative, you don't believe in global warming. Because why? Because the people you don't like tell you that it's true. It has anything to do with evidence. It's just the way that it's become. And I wish I was more optimistic that the fever would break here in the short term. Eventually everything changes.
Do you have thoughts about the best way to tackle that prosperity gap?
At the end of the day, it's all very hard, and it requires the nation to have attention. It's got to be, somebody's got to figure the impact on everything, and how does this affect people? The standard answer is probably the best answer. We have to figure out a way to give our workforce to deal with the kind of skills that you need. Some of it is that. I think a little bit of it is sort of trade policy. Some of it is we got to understand that when the rest of the world grows, that we grow with it too. I don't know how it affects it. We have a really strong currency right now, which is probably hurting our manufacturers some. You certainly don't want to get rid of it. You don't, Social Security, Medicare, things like that, or they may not expand, but they're going to keep people from going broke. You know, we might, could do some things on infrastructure. I'd like to see us, I think the payroll tax is horrifically regressive tax. I'd like to see some kind of substitute for that. Maybe it could help people on water. And I do think raising the minimum wage helps some. It's not, none of these things in itself and gonna kind of do it, but if you do enough of them and you keep trying, and you got to think of new things. I mean, we need to have an institute for middle class studies. It's got to, it's got to be like a country says there's a crisis. I mean, and I think it is a crisis, and I think that how we tax people, things like that, or really do matter.
If it's a presidential race built on, it's the economy stupid, is there a tough message in there for a Democratic candidate that is about raising taxes? Because it's always a tough sell.
I don't, right now, we've raised taxes on 1%. President Obama did that. I don't see, a lot of people, we need a gas tax. It's not very good, and gasoline is cheap. Maybe you could, public doesn't like that because it's pretty sort of regressive. You certainly don't want to do away with it, at least me. I mean, getting rid of the estate tax would really be dumb. I think the revenues of the federal government are sort of pretty good. I don't think we need to get into that discussion. But if we keep going, why the deficit is shrinking? What the heck, man? Take yes for an answer. At least for now. Maybe it'll get worse. And people say, hey, yeah, but 15 years from now, 15 years from now, well, let's think about it then. But right now, I'd like to see massive infrastructure program in the United States. I mean, we got zero interest rates, no labor costs at a historic low. Well, why not? That beats me. I'll never understand it, but we don't.
Can you compare for me this Clinton to your Clinton as a candidate?
Two really different people. And I just, no more than, people compare me to my wife, you know what I mean? I don't know your circumstance or our circumstance, but I would hate to be compared to my spouse, or I would hate to be compared to my brother or my sister. And they're two different people. And he's kind of one of a kind, and I guess in her way, she's one of a kind. But I'm oldest of 8 kids, and I'm most well-known of all my siblings, that I just, in my children, somebody compares my children, I kind of bristle at that kind of thing,
It's hard to deny he's pretty special as a...
As a politician, he's not special. He's what Roy Hobbs wanted to say in the natural. There goes Roy Hobbs, he was the best there ever was. There goes Bill Clinton, he was the best there ever was, period. And I mean, he's not a once-in-a-generation politician, he's a once-in-a-half-century politician. And you can't, it's unfair to compare her or kind of almost anybody to him. But just as a person that people were comfortable with, that, is talking earlier, I could walk with Bill Clinton down any street anywhere in Toronto and be, hey, Bill, you know what I mean? They're just a way he has, a charm he has that no one has.
You ever think about what it would be like if Bill Clinton were in the White House today with these problems?
Again, I go back and I got to give Obama some credit for some of the stuff that's got. President Obama does not like politics. He really does. He's in it and he's been successful at it, but he would rather do math homework with his children than, give a speech to the Canadian Parliament.
Yeah.
But Bill Clinton would love to, It's just two different people.
All right, we got to leave it there. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.